Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Kuftes Vav. We begin 3 lines down the top of the Amud, where the Gemara continues regarding explaining the halacha of the Mishnah. Regarding when someone recognizes his stuff in the possession of someone else. Sure, it's goes by the Kazakh and the Chesed. Turn to the Daf Yomi. Turn to today's Daf. Should be Schos Vachin and so on. It's strong throughout the entire world. So, discussing today's Daf are Hamakar Kale B'Svav B'Yaracher. If let's say you recognize your vessels or your sram in someone else's possession, if the word gets out in town that he had a theft, so he swears, as the Mishnah told us, how much he paid for it, and then he has to give it back. The halacha of what happens if someone stole, he sells it, and then they recognize the thief. So the question is regarding hadin marishon, hadin hasheni, regarding who is the judgment with, who's the responsible party, the first guy or the second guy. We're going to gezabel in yisasha habaylim. If someone robs and the owner did not give a pope, and we had said this teaching Rav Chiz on the previous daf, someone else comes and eats from him, ratzim zegav, ratzim zegav. If you want to collect from the first one, you want to collect from the second one, and that's what's going to relate back to the halacha of our Mishnah. The halacha of some terms of concept of tukan hashuk. We institute certain things because of so we need commerce to work, so we instituted certain laws. Nistika had chavish al devash. So we said in the Mishnah, if let's say someone's barrel of honey breaks, and this guy pours out his wine to save the honey inside of it, so he's only going to get his wages. We'll see exactly regarding what is the actual compensation. So begin the current daf Kuftes Vav, 3 lines down at the top of the Yomit. It says Itmar we learn Ganav Umachar. If someone steals and he sells it off, and then the thief is recognized as a thief. So and now again, someone had bought it from the thief already. So Rav Mishmei Reb Chiyama, he says Hadin, the judgment of the owner of the theft, and his claim is imharishan with the first guy, meaning it's on the thief and the buyer is not his litigant. Meaning, if he's coming to collect from him, he has to pay him. Now, even though we recognize that the thief, we don't say that, okay, so the buyer has to give the stuff he bought back for free because look, it was stolen from the guy, and then he has to collect from the ganav. No, we say that the buyer is not the responsible party. The halacha is that the victim has to go and litigate with the first guy, with the ganav. That's the opinion of Reb Chia. Reb Yechon Mishmid Reb Yanei, he says, no, hadin, the judgment of the balabayas is imhasheni, is with the buyer, and he's going to take back his stuff without paying for free, because this is my stuff. This was stolen from me. You bought it? Okay, tough luck on you. What does that have to do with me? That's the machlekes. Now Rabbi Yisrael says, loy pligi. They're actually not disagreeing. Kan, the teaching of Rabbi Yechanan, that said, hadin imasheni, is talking about when he bought it from the Ganav lifnei years, before the owner gave up hope. Before the owner gave hope, it's still the owner's, wherever it is, hadin imasheni. So then, yes, the halacha is that the victim, he goes and he takes it back from the buyer. Kan, the teaching of Rabbi Chia is la'achar yish. The guy bought it after the owner had given up hope. So then it's rightfully the buyer's, and hadin marishan, then he's going to have to litigate with the first guy. And based on this interpretation of Rav Yosef, v'tavayu islu Rav Chizda, they both hold Rav Chizda's teaching. If you recall in the previous daf, we had said, if let's say someone robs and the owner did not give up hope, and then someone else comes and eats it from the gazlan, Rav Chizda said, ratzim zegav, if you want to collect from either one of them, as we said in the beginning of the parak. Here also, even though he gave money to the ganav, now, but regarding the balabayas, however, he's a gazlan, meaning the buyer is essentially a gazlan from the balabayas before years. Now, however, where the thief is not recognized, so then the Rabbanan actually made a takanas hashuk institution that then, like we said in the Mishnah, then he actually could take what he gave, whatever he paid, he gets compensated for. But when the ganav is hukar, when he's recognized, then he has to go get. The Rashi is explaining something very important to understand how this does not contradict the halacha of the Mishnah. He has to go and get his money back from the ganav, because when you ate, if the owner was not mayayish yet, and you eat it, meaning what you did, he bought it from the guy and he's using it. Well, you're responsible because you're like a gazlan from the original owner. That's how Rav Yosef explains. Amalei Abaye asks on his Rebbe Rav Yosef. Said, "Beloy pligi, really? the Rabbi Yochanan and Rav are not disagreeing. Hamatnas kahuna, but it's a little bit of a difficult example. But the matnas kahuna, which the kahanim get 24 different types of gifts, kilifnei yish dami. It's like it's before yish, like Rashi explains, because the kohen would not be miyayish from it. And yet, pligi, in other words, we have Rav who says and maintains his position of hadin imar rishon, that the case is only with the ganav and not with the second guy, even though lifnei yish. I mean, you just told me like everyone holds like Rav Chizda lifnei yish. The second guy, quote unquote, the buyer or the oichel, whatever you want to call him, is responsible and he can collect from him. Not true. I'll prove you that Rav maintains not like this, and he does disagree with Rabbi Yochanan because he does not hold like Rav Chizda, because he holds lifnei yish, which is what Manas Kuna is going to be still hadin only marishin, not with the sheni. Where do we find this? Now we're learning Mishnah Masechtas that says, Omaloi. If someone says to a butcher, says, Muchali ma'er shapar, could you please sell me the stomach? I want to make good kishka of the cow. Now, in the stomach there is matanis. We know that there's certain gifts you have to give to the kohen. In any regular chulin animal, people don't know that there's 3 parts that you have to give. So you have the keva, which is the maw part of the stomach that you had inside that which is being sold to this consumer, to the customer. So noisnan, the buyer has to give this keva l'kohen to the kohen. Now he doesn't take off now. You know, a guy puts on the scale, he puts on this big boich of the cow. Yeah, that's not going to me. That's going to go. He cannot take away from the purchase price because we presume that he wasn't selling him the matanis. So therefore, that's not like coming off the cost price. Now, let's say he bought it, however, with weight, literally on the scale. Then then he gives a gun, and then he does remove it because it goes by weight, and that's not going to me. Now, Rav, this is very important because we're going in Rav now, who we want to explain his opinion. Rav qualifies this teaching of this Mishnah. He says, Lo shanu. We didn't learn that if the customer is buying by weight, that then he gives it to the kohen. Again, which Rashi says, when you see nois non l'kohen, he gives it to the kohen, it sounds like that the buyer forcibly has to give it to the kohen, and he has to then maybe go get his money back from the seller, from the butcher, who charged him for weight that's not going to him. Says Rav, that's el shashakala atzmai. That's only if he waited himself. Av shakla hatavach, but if the butcher waited for him, hadin, the halacha is that the law of the kohen and his contesting is im hatavach. Meaning, who does he go to say, hey, you have my matnas kuna? Is with the butcher, is not with the buyer. What does that mean? So Rashi explains, that's Rav Lishatasa, that he says, hadin ima rishon. Because the butcher is like the first ganav, because it's not yours, you're stealing this, the kohen, it's the kohen's matanis. And the buyer is the sheni. And what is Rav saying? Hadin im hatavach. Even though we said they don't give up hope, they know there's a matnas kuna that's coming to them. It's like koidim yish. Ooh, obviously Rav does not hold like Rav Chizda. We see that lifnei yish, he still says hadin im ha rishon, not im ha sheni. So that contradicts Rabbi Yosef. Amos says the Gemara, no, it doesn't contradict Rabbi Yosef. It doesn't mean hadin im hatavach. It means af din im hatavach. It means not only does the kohen have the ability to go to the second guy, to the buyer, he also could go and litigate with the butcher. What does that mean? What would you say? Kahana gifts cannot be, so to speak, robbed, because like Rashi explains, that the kinyan that the kohen has is very strong, because he's getting it from Hashem. And wherever it is, you say it's the kohen's. And even if, so to speak, the butcher takes it, the kohen can collect it from the buyer wherever it is. In other words, you won't say that it's anything to do with the butcher. Kamashman, that's what they're saying. No, that also from the butcher, but again, it is like Rav Chizda's teaching. It is Ratzim Izagav, and therefore does not contradict Rav Yosef. Now, the Gemara asks, based on the Havamina, now according to Baya, at least the Gemara understands from his question, that he holds that no, that actually Rav and Rabbi Yochanan are disagreeing. So then, but my pligi, then what exactly are they disagreeing about? Oh, they're disagreeing exactly this halacha. Before years, Bid Rav Chizda, in Rav Chizda's teaching, that Rav would not hold like Rav Chizda, and rather the halacha would only be with the first one that stole, and not with the second guy who bought it from the ganav. That's two approaches in this discussion. You have the opinion of Rav Yosef, you have the opinion of Abaya. Another Gemara brings the third approach. Rav Zidama, he says that actually, where the owner was not meyayish, everyone holds like Rav Chizda, and therefore the halacha is that you could get it not only from the ganav, but you could also get it from the buyer from the ganav. Here is talking about the owner gave up hope only once the buyer already bought it. And they did not give up hope in the hands of the thief. And this is what they disagree about. What's the machlekes? Marsa Rabbi Yochanan held Yush ve'achikach shinu rishos. We know you need both of them, but what's with the order? If you have that the owner gave up hope and then the change of possession, kani, then it's going to be acquired because when you got it beheter, not be'issa. The guy already gave up hope. Shinu rishos ve'achikach yiyush loy kani. But if you have first change of possession, then giving up hope, then loy kani, you're not going to acquire. So here, where the yish only happened after shinu rishos, it's not going to work. It doesn't make a difference. You're going to totally acquire, and even with money, he's not going to have to give it back. The guy gets to keep it. That's a third approach. A fourth approach of Papam, he says, no, the truth is that their machlekes is even before yish. And still, they both are like Rav Chizda, which that's difficult. How could it be both like Rav Chizda? If it's before Yish, I thought Rav Chizda holds Rotzim Zegab, you could Hadinim Arishin and Asheni, but they're disagreeing Hadinim Arishin and Asheni. He says, no, I'll tell you, because we're talking about Beglima, we're talking about by what was stolen was a garment. The Kulam Lepligi, no one's going to disagree the Hadalamar that goes back to the owner right away for free. And the buyer cannot hold on to it for his monies. And like Rav Chizda, that because Vahacha, so meaning everyone agrees that really it goes back, like Rav Chizda's teaching, but Vahacha also by Takanas Hashokim Miflagi. Machlekes here regarding the garment is, did we make a institution for the marketplace for commerce purposes when you recognize the thief? Rav Mishmei Reb Chia, when you don't recognize the thief, we did say Takan Sashuk, if you recall from the Halacha of our Mishnah, which we said the guy gets compensated. Here, when you recognize the thief, that's the machlekes. Did we make a Takan Sashuk or not? Rav Mishmei Reb Chia, he holds a din marishin when he says the halachas were the first one. So Rashi says importantly, we're actually changing the translation of what does it mean adin marishin. When Rav said hadin marishin, he's not talking about, as we had said up until this point, the halacha of the balabais, of the victim. Who does he litigate with? He litigates with the first guy, with the ganav, and now with the second one. No, he means actually the judgment of the buyer. Who does the buyer litigate with? Right, because the buyer is getting it taken away from him because it was a stolen item that he bought. So that's what the Gemara explains now in this fourth interpretation. Dinu delekeach. The halacha of the buyer is delishkol zuze only miganav. When it says Hadinim Arishin, I mean the first one, who's the first one? The first one is the Ganav. He only could get his money back from the Ganav. Because we didn't institute a special halacha for the marketplace. That this buyer bought it out in the open in the shuk, and he didn't understand that it was stolen. They did not make a takana that the victim should have to pay him the money because no one's going to want to buy anymore because how do I know it's not stolen, whatever, it's not authenticated. No, we didn't make such a takana. Therefore, too tough luck. It was a stolen item, you got to give it back, and now you got to go ahead and litigate with the guy you bought it from. Rabbi Yochanan, he says, Hadin Mesheni. What does that mean, Din Mesheni? He is the Sheni. What does that mean? So the Gemara explains, Din Lekech, the halacha of the buyer is the Lishkol Mi Bal HaBayis. That's the Sheni. That he buys it, he takes it from the victim, because they made it takan shuk. So although we hold like Rav Chizda, and the buyer cannot tell the victim, "You're not my litigant," like Rav Chizda says that he could say, "I want to collect from you," but after he pays the stolen item, he could collect his monies from the victim. That's the sheni. Now, if you're going to ask, but who cares? He's taking the money of how much he paid. So who cares if it's because of takana? Who cares if it's because of a claim love bal dvarim, the diat that you have nothing to do with me and I want to hold on to it? The nafkamina is that where the guy stole and someone else came and ate it without paying. Where we say like Rav Chizda, and if the second guy is easier for him to deal with than the first guy, he's going to collect from him. And because takan sashuk was only said for a likeach, for a buyer, and the guy actually paid money. But if the guy did not pay money, that would be the relevancy of Rav Chizda's halacha. Okay, so that's four different interpretations. It says the Gemara B'Sava Rav Lo Asa B'Takan Shuk. So now the way you just explained it is that the Machlekes says Rav Papa is regarding a glima. Did we say Takan Shuk? Are we gonna the guys are not gonna want to buy stuff anymore? Did we make Takan Shuk? And Rav holds that no, they didn't, and therefore he has to go back to the guy who sold it to him, the Gana, but he cannot try to get your money back from the original owner of the item who wants his item back. But really, Rav Huna, who was Talmidid Rav Hava, he was a student of Rav. B'chanan Bisha, that was his name. Ganav Glima, he stole a garment, exactly the case we're talking about. V'zavn, and he sold it. And also, coming to Rav Huna, and the owner came from Rav Huna. Amalei, he says, Lahu Gavra, he said to that guy, Zil Shriya Vitach. What does that mean? Like, open your belt, meaning of it is a mashkin. Undo your collateral. In other words, redeem your collateral that's in his hands. Meaning, you got to pay the guy to get your item back, which is a takan sashok, that you have to compensate the guy who bought. But Rav Huna is a student of Rav, and Rabbi tell me help that we don't have this takan sashok. So the Gemara, Shanachan Bisha is different. Why? Since the victim, meaning the guy, the buyer, won't be able to get his money back, kaloi hoker dami. If it's a little confusing, but in our Mishnah we said in our Mishnah that the guy could get his stuff back. We said if someone's makru kel b'svar bi'aracher, and Yotz Lashem Gnei Be'ir said, okay, swears how much he gave, and he gets that amount from the real owner. That's when we don't recognize that the guy who sold them is a ganav. Our Gemara was also talking about, as we started the Amid, that ganav v'malchav achkach hukar ganav. You know the thief. So when you don't know who the thief is, everyone agrees this is at the Takan Zashok, because people, how do I know? I'm saying I didn't know. So you're right. You get your money back from the original owner. When you know there is a ganav, that's what Machlekes says. So go to the guy who stole it for you. We know he stole it. Get your money back from him. But that's what Gemara is saying, that Chanan Bisha, he's such a difficult guy. It's like you don't know. It's like there's no one here, no one home. And therefore, that's why even Rav would agree, even though we don't make it a shuk, that you'll be able to get your money back from the original owner. Now, the Gemara qualifies this teaching. Amar Rabbi says, if he's a well-known thief, then they didn't make this thing about like getting your money. The guy's a well-known guy. If you're buying from him in the street, he opens up his coat and you're buying from him those watches. I mean, don't come like crying and say that you didn't know. Says he was a well-known Rasha, and they said you made the contract that he could go get his money back from the real owner. So although he was well known for his riches, for his wickedness, he wasn't known to be as a thief, and therefore it wasn't known, and therefore we do have a halach of Takan Sashok over there. Now, continuing on this theme, Itmar, we learned, if someone steals and he pays back his debt to the lender with what he stole, or let's say he steals and he pays on credit to a store from what he stole. So here also here also we don't say this that okay, now you can go ahead and get compensated. Because Dami, they said, Loya daite dahanu, it was not with the intention of the stolen item that Yehibus Leimidi, that you gave him any money. Because you had lent him money beforehand. So the fact that you're getting this money now, which was stolen goods, that doesn't allow you that excuse to say, well, it's only when you didn't, that this is the initial transaction that's happening between the two parties. Now the Gemara gets a little bit technical over here. If there was a collateral that was worth 200, which he gave him for something worth 100, also by Takan Sashok. There, they made the Takan Sashok, even though it was much more than what was owed. Now Shav B'Shava, if it's the same amount, Amimami says, Lo Asa Takan Sashok, they did not make Takan Sashok, meaning, as Rashi explains, that when you have it's not normal to lend on a security that's worth the entire amount. So therefore, it's not really with the intention of that security that you gave the loan. It's really just that you're believing the guy. So therefore, that's why the Gemara is telling us that in such a case, they didn't make a Takan Sashok. Because again, the whole word of a Takan Shuk is that you're relying on this. You didn't really rely on that. Mazut says, no, us for the Takan Shuk, they did make a Takan Shuk over there. What happens Zvina Shav B'Shabbat? Let's say you bought something for the exact amount. Us for the Takan Shuk, made Takan Shuk. But of course, that's a regular case. Shava Meya B'Masan, let's say something worth 100, that for something worth 200, turns out it was stolen. Rav Sheshem says, they did not make the Takan Shuk. As Rashi explains, even to take 100 out of the 200. Why? Because just like the extra 100 was a matana, the 100 that it was worth was also matana. And Takan Shuk was not said on matana, it was only said on something that was bought. Rav Ami says, no, Asr by Takan Shuk, they did make Takan Shuk, even to take 200. Because it's normal to go ahead and to buy something with more than the price that it's worth, and so it's not a matana. Says the Gemara, but all these cases, Asr by Takan Shuk, they made halacha of Takanas Hashuk, which Taisus points out, not all of them. It's only the ones that we have machlokes and Marom on, Amemers, Mazutra, Rav, and Rav Sheshes. But regarding Rav's teaching by Ganav Meforsim, no one disagrees that we don't have Takan Shuk over there. But all these other cases, we do have a Takan Shuk. Labar, for the exception of Miganav V'Par B'Chayvai, if someone steals and he pays back his debt, or Ganav V'Par B'Keva, or a guy steals and he pays back the credit card bill that he had, because the money was not given on this object, it was an old debt, and therefore that would not be considered as a valid case for the Takan Shuk. Now the Gemara brings the story of Avim bar Nazi, Chamud Ravina. He was the father-in-law of Ravina. He was trying to collect from a certain person 4 zuz. Ganav Glima, so the borrower who didn't have money, he stole a jacket, and Asinale, he brought it to him. Now, okay, so he got paid back with a jacket. Now he lent him another 4 zuz. At the end of his realized the guy had stolen the jacket. So they came to Ravina. Ami says, Kamoi, the first payment was the halach of Ganav V'Par B'Chayvai, and the guy steals and he pays back his debt. And the guy who the jacket was stolen from doesn't have to give you anything, because, like we said, that does not qualify for the case of the Takan Shuk. These other 4 zuz, which was on the deposit of the jacket, Shekol Zuzach, you could take your money from the victim, and then only then give back the jacket, because the Takan Shuk would apply. It wouldn't apply for the first 4, but it would apply for the next 4, that you have the jacket now as collateral for the second time you lent. Now, Rav Kohen asks that, how do you know? Maybe the jacket was given as payment for the first monies, and that's a case of Ganav V'Par B'Chayvai, Ganav V'Par B'Kefai. The guy steals and he pays back his debt, the guy steals and pays back the credit that he owes. So and then the next 4 zuz, maybe that he's just trusting him, like he trusted him in the beginning. So then wouldn't be Takan Shuk. How do you know that the next 4 zuz is like on the collateral? So Galgal Musa, the story ended up evolving. And Matli came to Ravo, and they came in from the Ravo, and he says, Rav Kohen, you're right. Halacha is like Rav Kohen, that since the guy trusted him the first time, he's also trusting him. It's not on the jacket, and he has to give the jacket back. It was not a loan on the jacket. The Gemara brings that Narsha, meaning he lived in this place, Neresh, Ganav Safra. He stole a sefer. And Zavni lepupanoi betamnid zuzi. He sold it, this stolen goods, to a person from Papanoa for 80 zuz. Now it gets interesting. Also Papanoa, now the guy from Papanoa, Zavni lebar mechazai, so his guy was a middleman. He sold to someone from Mechayza, the Meva Essen zuzi. These are all the different places that they live for 120 zuz. Now, L'Sefo Kargan, but at the end they realized that this was stolen. So Mabai says like this: Lezel Mor de Safra, the owner of the sefer should go. So the last guy holding it is the person from Mechayza who bought it for 120. Let him give him Tamne Zuzi, 80 Zuz, which remember, the Papanoi had sold it, had bought it. He was the first buyer for 80. Let him give him 80, V'shokal Safre, and take his sefer. Let the guy from Mechayza go, V'shokal Arbim and Papanoi, go get his 40 from the Papanoi, who made 40 off for him. The guy from Papanoi bought it for 80, sold for 120, let him get that 40 back from him. Rav asked on the Abayi, he says, wait a second. Hashta lekech meganav, if a guy buys from meganav. We said, asabet Takan Shuk, we made Takan Shuk, which is, that we said, that the last buyer could get his money back, however much he paid, from the original owner, so he should get all 120 back. If you bought from the thief himself, you buy from a buyer, isn't it all the more so we have to Takan Shuk? Why is he only getting back 80, not all 120? So Elam Rabbi says like this: Lezel Mor de Safra, Let the owner of the sefer go, give it to the guy from Macheza, Meives and Zuzi. Yes, give him the 120, Zuz v'shokos, he could take his sefer back. Then then let go the owner of the sefer go, get 40 from the guy from Papanoi who made that profit margin, and v'tam them in their shah, and then the ganav himself, he'll get the 80, and that's how he'll get compensated for what the money of his sefer was sold for. Now look at the next Mishnah, which we referenced on the previous daf, that related to this takanas, like we said, we had made it as a takana of this idea of, let's say, a guy's stream of bees had gone onto someone else's branch. We said, Rabbi Shloimy said that's a takanas best, and that you could go and get it. So similar halacha as our Gemara had referenced them together, that Zeba b'chavita shel yan, the guy's walking, he has a barrel of wine. Zeba b'kadash shel dvash, this guy's walking, he has a barrel of honey. This to go chavish shel dvash, and the barrel of honey cracks. So it's going to be a loss. It's all the honey's going to go out. The Shabbat says, so this guy pours out his wine, and the guy says, hey, come here, pour your honey into my barrel. So we continue to my base, says the Mishnah, he only gets the wages of how much would it cost to rent a jug that he was holding, and the wages of his work that he did. But he doesn't get anything else. Now, let's say he says, I'll save your honey, but you'll pay me for the wine that I'm losing. Then he has to give it to him. Another case says in the let's say a stream is flooding his donkey and his friend's donkey. Now, his donkey is worth 100 dinar. His friend's is worth 200. And the guy leaves his own donkey. So figure, I'll save the more expensive one, the 201. Says the Mishnah, no one asked you. You only get like how much would it cost a guy to try to hire him for a few kopecks to go save your donkey. Now, the Mamal, if he tells him on the Atzel Shalcholok, I'll save your donkey, you'll pay me how much my donkey is worth, which is worth of it both of us, then he's obligated to go ahead and give him that value. Now, the Gemara says, Vamai, why is this halacha true? Leimale, why can't he tell the owner, your honey was going to waste. I was like saving it from Hefker. Why does the Mishnah say, he only gets his wages as a laborer? He should take all the honey. Now, Rashi points out, by donkey you can't say this because that's the case the guy could have saved it. But here there was no jug but his. He should say, I got it from Hefker. Didn't we learn the Braisa? If someone was carrying jugs of wine, jugs of oil, and he sees that they're breaking and everything's going to get totally lost right now, he's not allowed to say, great. You know what? Truma Maisa is a loss for me. You have to give it to the Kohen, give it to the Levi. You know what? Before it gets broken, before it gets lost, I have my home tevel. Let this be Truma Maisa if a place I have in my house. You're not allowed to say that. And if he says he hasn't said anything. So Rashi says, what do you see from there? That since it's going to waste, you have no rights. It's like Hefker. You can't even say, let it be Truma Meiser. So if that's the case, why can't this guy who saved it with his jug get the whole thing? Why does it only get El Eschare? So the Gemara, like Rabbi Yirmiyah said later on, we're talking about where the ekel, the netting is wrapped around it. Which of the honey, ekel, is this that they surround the vessels when there's a liquid type of thing, is karchala is wrapped on it. So you have a barrel of honey that's tied with this ekel. It's not all going to pour out. It's going to drip out a little bit at a time. So therefore, that's why it's not considered as hefker, and therefore, although he did save it, but it's not from a total loss. It wasn't totally hefker, and therefore he only gets his wages. Now, the Gemara, however, asks on the Braisa. The Braisa said, "Vim Amar." We quoted this as a raya, but once we brought it in to Talmudic style as we discussed it, we said he's not allowed to tell about these barrels that are breaking that it should be truma maisa on the pairs that he has back home. We said, "Vim Amar." If he did say it, lo emakom, he hasn't said anything. What do you mean? Why is that? By the time we learn the Braisa, if someone was traveling, and he has money in his hand, unconnected, and he has a robber that's facing him. Lo yam, he's not allowed to say, great, how do you pay this? Pay us a meiser sheni, I have in my house, and I need to redeem them. Then deconsecrate on these funds, and let the Ganav take them. Now, if he does say it, his words are valid. Well, I thought when things are going to be lost, then your words have no validity. Says, what are we talking about here? By the honest, by the robber, he could say it's not a total, it's not hefker yet. So therefore you could be b'di'evid, abimachal, your ma'aseh on that. Says the Gemara, wait a second. If you could save, then why initially can't you say it? What's the problem? Says the Gemara, no, you can only save it under extreme circumstances. So says the Gemara, whenever there's a little bit of a loss, because like we're saying, it's not a total loss. Like over here, he could have saved it through extreme circumstances, and maybe he would save it. So l'ketchila lo yomer. So initially, you tell me he's not allowed to say this because it's going to be probably a loss for hektish for ma'aser sheni. But by the time we learn the brayso like this, it says if someone had a Levi had eser chavir shel tevel, he had 10 barrels that was meaning tevel for trumas meiser, meaning when the Levi gets 10 barrels, he has to take off 1/10 from that and give that trumas meiser to the kohen. Now, if he is tamei, meaning it's tamei, the 10 barrels of tevel are tamei, where the trumas meiser is not fit for the kohen for drinking because it's tamei, he could only use it for sprinkling. They used to sprinkle on the ground like a good smell. Now, later on, the Gemara is going to explain, it's talking about new wine, which is not really fit so much for sprinkling for the ziluf, because it's not going to give such a strong smell, and it's really only a small loss, because anyways, it's not so valuable. Now, if Achas mentioned Nishbir in this Skalsa, let's say he sees one of them they're breaking, or that it was uncovered, which uncovered also you can't really drink because we're concerned that maybe a snake put his venom inside of it. So again, it's not fit for drinking. Oimar, he says, Harehi Trumas Meiser al Tesha Chavarisa. Says, let this be Trumas Meiser on the other 9 barrels, which again is only a small loss for the kohen because anyways the kohen was not able to drink from it. You're allowed to say this. Now, ubishemen, by oil, which is truma, that's tamei, that's you could use it as for lighting, for igniting, and when you're going to cause a loss for the kohen by making it now the broken barrel for the kohen, that is a big loss. So let us again that do when they have kohen because that's going to be a loss for kohen. Okay, but we see by this small loss that of the wine that you could go ahead and say it and designate it. So how can you tell me whenever there's a small loss, like you shouldn't say it? You see, like you could say it. So Rabbi Yirmiyah says, no, the reason why it's permitted by the wine, this is the referencing of the Rabbi Yirmiyah's teaching that we quoted before, that we referenced. He says, you know what? Because ekel based about karchel, we're talking about where the netting of the vat is wrapped around that wine. So that's not considered such a loss, like over here, when you have the guy who's trying to steal your money, where you could only save only under extreme circumstances. So that's why Rabbi Yirmiyah says that it's permitted by the wine because it's not going to be such a loss. So the Gemara says that I understand that when it breaks, chazia, that it's fit, because it's you can still use it for the zila, fill in this gasel my chazia. What's a fit for when it's uncovered? And even so, you're telling me that he could say it's truma. So obviously, we see that when there's a small loss for the kohen, that they're not concerned. So says the Gemara, what do you mean? What's the problem? Why can't you use it also? Like when the barrel breaks and it falls on the ground, you're not going to drink it, but you could use it for ziluf. So why can't you use it when it was uncovered also for ziluf? So the Gemara, no, because by the time we learn the brayso, ma'imshin is galu. When your border was left uncovered, I'll spill it out into the street. We don't want a person that's barefoot to walk over it and let the poison of the snake go into his foot, because if let's say he has some type of a wound over there, then he's going to die because the venom of the snake is inside of it. And as I said, you not even need clay out of it. And you can't go and settle the dust with it. That's what ziluf is, similar to that. You're not allowed to have your animal drink from it, not your friend's animal. Rashi says because maybe they're going to slaughter it and then eat it afterwards. He says no, because of baltashkas. But be that as it may, we see that you cannot use it for ziluf. So says the Gemara that. So the question is meaning. So what's it fit for? What's this fit for that you're saying that you could say it's truma? Obviously, we're saying that we're not concerned for a small loss of the kind. Says no, we're talking about where it went through a sifter, a vessel on top of a vessel, and you put the sediments in the upper one, which is like a sieve, and the wine sifts by itself. A sifter has a problem about being uncovered, meaning you have to cover the upper one so that the snake doesn't drink from it. And even though the wine gets sifted through the sieve, we're concerned that maybe the venom is going to go with the wine into the vessel, and for sure when the bottom one is uncovered. And therefore, that's why we're saying that that we are concerned, because it's going to have a problem of being uncovered. So Amr Nechemi says, when we say this, only when the bottom one is uncovered. But the bottom one is covered, even though the upper one is uncovered, then there's no problem about being uncovered. Because the venom of the snake, is like a sponge. Meaning with safa, it floats in its place, and then you wouldn't have a problem about magula. Says Gemara, but didn't we learn this? Rabbi Shimon Levi says, we didn't learn this only if a person didn't mix it, like the case of the sifter, which no one touched it. But it was mixed, it's forbidden. And now here in the barrel, when you pour it from the barrel into the sifter, so it's the venom is going to be mixing with the wine, and will go through the sieve into the vessel. So no, it's possible that you'll put in something, a garment or the bottom of the sieve, apuma de chavita, by the opening of the barrel, the shafile, that you'll be able to pour it softly, and therefore it won't be mixing it, and therefore it will not have the problem about magula, and therefore it will be usable, just like the case of when it breaks. So then the Gemara said, if the case of the 10 barrels that you told me is permitted when it was uncovered, is Reb Nechemia, but the problem is, because you're saying it's based on Reb Nechemia's teaching that you won't have a problem about being uncovered because it goes through a sifter, but mitarminan, but I have a different problem then. Could you take truma from the tamei on tamei? Meaning you tell me that all these 10 barrels were tamei, and then what happens is that one of them breaks or one of them is uncovered, so you tell me that you could use that one for the other one. That was the question we were asking about Yochel Hasal de Atzchak. But by the time we learned the Brayse, the Brayse says that you're allowed to take truma from tamei for trumas meiser on the tamei barrels, from tar on tar, and from tar on tamei, but says the Tanakh, not from tamei on tar. The Chemim says, even from tamei on tamei, you're not allowed to take truma. Only by tamei. Tamei they were lenient because most Amaratzim really do take meiser. We presume it already was, so it's only a rabbinic concern. Okay, they were lenient. But if it's from the Chemia, how can you take trumas meiser from the tamei and the tamei? Says Gemara, and there is not a problem about the Chemi's shita. Now, the Gemara explains the Braysa. It said, by oil, you shouldn't do this, meaning you shouldn't take truma from the broken barrel, the 10th one that broke, for the other 9. Why? That's going to be a real loss to the kind. So why? Why is oil different than oil? Because you could use it to light, so it's not really such a loss. Wine is also fit to do the spraying of the wine on the ground, and that it's also going to be a loss to the kind. Says Gemara, if you're going to say zil v'lam milsahi, no, the sprinkling is not significant. That's not true. It actually has shaisin melug besela. For drinking, if you find cheap wine that you could buy a lug for a seller, you should buy. But a mezal from melug b'shtayim. But to do the sprinkling, you should buy even more expensive wine that a lug should cost you 2 slime because it's a greater pleasure. Says Gemara, new wine. New wine is not fit to really. It doesn't have such a good aroma. But you could age it. Says, no, you can't age it because aswa de takala. Because you might come to drink it and it's tamei, so you can't hold on to it. Says, shemenami is lidei kala. So oil, how are you going to hold on to it to light it? But it's also going to be, you might come to drink it. So no, the monach bekli mois, you keep it in a disgusting vessel, so you're not going to come to eat it. So the wine you also keep it in a disgusting vessel. No, if you need it for the sprinkling of giving a good smell, but kli mois, you're going to put it in there with the dirty diapers up. It's going to defeat the purpose. Which the Gemara ends off by saying that takala atzma tanoi. This whole halacha that we conserve at takala by holding a long time is actually machlekes tanoim. The time like Linda Bryce, chavish shal yayin shal truma shenitmes, a barrel of wine that's truma that became tamei. B'shamar they say as you continue of kaftes zayin madalf tishavach hakol. It all has to be poured out together as one because we're concerned of takala. You hold on to it, you might come to drink it. But still, they say no tasazilaf. You could hold on to it to use it for sprinkling. Now Amir Shmuel says I'll be the middle the decider. Because bibayis in the house, tasazilov, that you could use it for sprinkling. Ubesada, but in the fields, you have to pour it all out. Because like Rashi explains, till you're going to get to the house, it's such a long period of time, that would concern for takala. Ikidami, those say no, he says differently. But Yashim, when it's old wine, tasazilov, because that you could sprinkle right away. But when it's new wine, you have to pour it all out. So they said to him, no, machras. Meaning, you're really saying your own opinion. You're not saying like one of them. None of them mention the house or the field or old or new. A hachra is only, for example, let's say Beishami would have said whether it became tummy in the field, whether it became tummy in the house, you have to pour it all out. And Beisil says no, whether in the house or in the field, you could do zilov. And then Yishmael comes along and he says, oh, wait a second, depends. If it becomes tummy in the field, you pour it all out. If it's in the house, then you do zilov. So he's being machriya in what they both said. He's going to be like 2 against 1. So regarding field, he's 2, and the halacha is like the 2, because you don't say that you go with 1 when it's opposing 2, because you say acharam lahatas. And but over here, none of them said anything that you're making such a chil between the house and the field. You're saying your own opinion, therefore we don't go with him. But again, that's what we're saying, that this halacha would be, we see takal as a machlekes tanoim between Bisham and Basil, and therefore that would be obviously relevant to the halacha that we're saying to differentiate between wine and oil. Thank you to any time for hosting us.